RAZA here for IFL TV in association with MTK Global. With me, all the way from Las Vegas, Nevada, my very good friend, Amer Abdallah. Amer, how are we doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you? It's good to see you again.
I'm great. Thank you for giving me a few moments of your time. Before we talk anything about boxing and talk a little bit about yourself, just want to touch on current climate we're living at the moment with COVID-19. I've spoken to a few people out in Vegas, and it seemed like Vegas wasn't hit as hard as other states in America. But what was your whole reaction when you heard about thousands upon thousands of people are dying because of this virus? What was your immediate reaction when this all took place in the early part of this virus?
Yes, subhanAllah, as soon as I heard about it, initially I was one of those people that thought, man, this thing is a hoax, or it's a little bit too much propaganda behind it, a little bit too much media behind it. So I didn't take it serious. And when it hit stateside, the first case was in Seattle in the state of Washington. I said, okay, now it reached the United States. Let's see what happens. And then it started doubling every day. About a week or 10 days before they had the big shutdown, I decided to pull my daughter out of school. I decided to come back and kind of just lock down and bunker down. I said, man, this thing's probably going to be a little bit more serious than we thought it was. I was one of the people that went out and bought an extra refrigerator, stocked it up, got extra ammunition. I was that guy. And my wife says, why would you go get a refrigerator and all that? I said, look, worst case scenario is we end up donating this food, right? That's the worst case scenario. If I'm right, then we have food to survive if this thing gets ugly. And if we don't, then okay, we got food to donate. So I'm one of those guys that takes a little bit more of the side of caution when it comes to that. So I locked down, we bunkered down, and of course we isolated a little bit early before anybody else. But this thing grew to what it was. So it's a crazy time, man.
Are you one of those individuals who went up and stocked up on toilet tissue?
Well, as you know, Raza, we're Muslim, so we are used to having bidets in the house. We don't need excessive toilet tissue. So a box of toilet paper, a roll of 80 rolls or 40 rolls can get us through quite a while. Use bidets, people. When you need to wash.
Here in the UK, we've probably got one of the worst death rates in Europe. America seems to have the worst death rate in the whole world. Do you feel like people themselves didn't take it serious?
Oh, they absolutely haven't. And in the United States, we're, with all due respect to every other country in the world, I believe this is the greatest country to live in the world, in the United States. But with that comes, and I say this because I'm born and raised in New York City, there comes a sense of, I don't know if it's entitlement or if it's a sense of just over comfort. We've never struggled. We don't really struggle in the United States like a lot of third world countries do and a lot of countries outside of the US do. So it's different when you tell somebody isolate and be in quarantine. The first thing they say is, you're taking away my liberty. I want to be free. I want to have the right to do this and the right to do this. And we've never really struggled enough where we understand that, listen, this is for our own good and for our own benefit. So I think that people, first of all, before taking it too serious, I think there's always a level of skepticism with everything that comes through mainstream media, particularly, and a big reason for the person sitting in the White House now kind of propagates that and promotes fake news, if you will. So I think a lot of people are really taking it with a grain of salt, first of all. And this thing was dubbed a hoax. So they didn't take it serious, number one. And number two, after just, a few weeks, people were saying, let us out. We want to be free, which I thought was just so, aside from being ridiculous and just insane, I thought it was so irresponsible. But yeah, I think that's the reason for it is because of who we are as Americans. Is we enjoy playing on the side of we don't play on the side of caution. We're a little bit more gunslingers and kind of do things our way and a little bit more freedoms, and there is a cost to that.
Did you ever expect to see the Las Vegas Strip without the lights, the people, the hotels empty, the casinos empty, guarded as Sin City, as you know? Did you ever expect to see it so empty as it is now? Ever?
Also, it's funny you asked that. So I probably once a week, just to kind of change scenery, I would tell my wife, let's go take a drive on the strip because this will never happen again. And Raza, when I tell you empty, I'm talking empty. You know how eerie it is not to see the fountains in the Bellagio go off when you can literally just swerve in the road and go at whatever distance you want. You can walk in the middle of the street. It was eerie. It wasn't odd. It was scary. It seemed like that Will Smith movie, where it was just the end of days, and it was very eerie. So but I did go out there, and I wanted to make sure that I experienced that.
I mean, we met many years ago in Las Vegas. Obviously, I was introduced to you by Badu Jack, whom I knew before you, may I say first. You obviously managed Badu Jack, Vidal Rally, and a few others. Before we talk about these particular fighters themselves, we know you've got a background in MMA. So you just want to give us a little bit history behind what you did before you got to boxing management. And I know you obviously still do the MMA now as well.
I don't do MMA, Raza, and I would wish that you had done a little bit more research.
MMA, it's you're fighting with your legs, you're fighting with your hands, same thing.
Yeah. So I know that you're a stenographer in court. I mean, you like write notes and you report things, right? That's like a stenographer in court. I kickbox.
Kickbox, MMA, same thing.
So I would, okay.
Mixed martial arts, they call it.
Yeah, right. It is a mixed martial art. So it's kicking and punching, kickboxing. Alhamdulillah, thank God I had a great career, undefeated. I'll go back even before that and say that I was, proudly I'll say it, of course I never made the money that some of these guys did now, but I was the first to promote myself under my own promotion and fight under my own promotion. I caught a lot of flack for it back because it was such a conflict of interest. But fast forward 20, 25 years now, every major, big time fighter has their own promotion company. But yeah, I had a great career. I had, and then I retired a few years back, undefeated world champion. And I love the business side of the sport. I always have been involved with the business side of it. So now managing guys like Badu Jack, Vidal Riley, a few others that I advise also. I love that part of the game.
Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What I was saying, if I can even use the word successful, the reason why I think I find as much success as I do is because I was a gym owner. I owned a gym for 14 years. I was a coach. I coached, the New York State Golden Gloves team for 5 years. Of course, in New York State, it's broken up into two places. It's New York City and then the rest of it. It was then called the Syracuse Golden Gloves team, but it was part of New York State. So I was a head coach there for 5 years. I was a manager. I was a fighter. I was a promoter. I'm still a promoter. So I've touched every facet of the business, and I understand. So when we're negotiating with a promoter, I know what the promoter is looking for. When we're talking to different, from on different angles of different business aspects of it, I've touched every single part of this sport. So it helped me tremendously in managing my guys, and I think that's why they found the success outside of the ring as they have inside of the ring.
So from kickboxing / MMA, what got you into boxing, one? And two, how did you get in contact with and meet Badu?
Great questions. The boxing has always been my heart. I've always loved boxing. My father was always, when we were growing up, it was always watching boxing fights, big boxing fights. So that was my number one love of combat sports. The first thing that he enrolled me in was martial arts, was karate. And he said, you have to learn how to defend yourself. And I fought hand, foot. I wanted nothing to do with it. And then after I started competing, I loved it. I loved just that sheer warfare. I loved the competition part of it. I loved that, challenging yourself mentally, physically. So, and then that progressed. Of course, karate was more of a point style, and I wanted to get into more full contact. And I thought, what better way to use my legs than to also incorporate boxing? So that's why I gravitated into kickboxing. Looking back at it, Raza, I would have probably, I would have loved to have just boxed from the beginning. But it's good. I love using my legs, and alhamdulillah, that was one of my strong suits. So I enjoyed doing that. When I came to Las Vegas, I was training with Jeff Mayweather. My cousin introduced me to him probably 10 years back. So the last 6 fights of my career, I trained with Jeff. So I would hold camp in Vegas at the Mayweather Boxing Club, and that's where I met Badu. And of course, because of our Muslim background and our beliefs, we hit it off pretty quick. And that's how I ended up doing it.
What is it that you look for in a fighter to manage? Is there anything particular you look for? You've got someone like Badu who's kind of approaching the end of his career.
Yeah.
Last few years left.
Sure.
And you've got someone like Vidal who's just started his career. So what is it that you look for?
It's the biggest thing that I say is in my slogan is, this is a business disguised as a sport. So you have to have an asset in the capacity of being able to sell your business. The business of Badu Jack, the reason why he found as much success, I believe that he did, is Badu is an absolute warrior at heart. 7, 8 world champions back to back to back. He doesn't get soft touches. Like, he fights and I think he's probably, if not one of the most underrated fighter today. Look at his resume, and he has fought the best of the best out there, and he has really gotten. I mean, it's unbelievable. Even after the last fight, I said to Leonard, I go, Leonard, you're going to try, and I'm trying to hang the blame on somebody. I said, Leonard, you're going to try to tell me that there's no politics in this game. You're going to try to tell me that he just has bad luck. And Leonard said, you know what, Amer? He does. I've never seen it. I mean, he does have the worst luck in the sport. So however you want to look at it is your preference. But with guys like Badu, the one thing that I look for is, how can we make the business, because I do look at this as a business, the business of Badu Jack different. And when I first started working with Badu, which was just before the Cleverly fight, which was late in his career, I thought, there's a lot of world champions, and there's a lot of guys that are in that weight class. There's a lot of great fighters, a lot of warriors out there. What makes him different? And his Muslim background, of him being a true Muslim champion, his philanthropic efforts of giving back to countries across the world, and giving, the Badu Jack Foundation is giving children a fighting chance across the globe. That part of it really made it very marketable. So we went to the Middle East and we started promoting him. We started promoting him in Dubai and in Jordan, and he started getting, royal treatment everywhere. So he became a big figure there. And we had the opportunity to meet great people in the Middle East. Of course, we have the fortune of now, especially with the recent partnership of the royalty in Bahrain, bringing on Daniel Kinahan as their advisor. We had the opportunity and the fortune of meeting Daniel, and he really helped us a lot in Dubai and helped us kind of grow there. So Badu became a big figure in the Middle East. And that's how you promote the fighter, is you look for what can make him stand apart. Vidal Riley. Vidal is a boxer before he is anything else. The fact that he hooked up with KSI really promoted him tremendously. So that's the bridge, is bringing the YouTube world into boxing. And Vidal is that perfect gap between them, because he has the presence in the social media world, if you allow me to use that term, and it comes over and it resonates into boxing fans. And he's got a tremendous following. I mean, KSI, you can't have a bigger name than that promoting you and getting behind you. So I look for, to answer your question briefly, Raza, I look for the marketability of the fighter, but they have to be able to fight. They got to be able to fight somehow. And my job is to find an angle for them to be able to promote them and have them make money outside of the ring just as much as they do inside of the ring.
Badu, 36 odd now, years of age, just teamed up with Jonathan Banks. Realistically, what do you think he has left in him? Does he have fights left in him, or does he have years left in him?
Well, great question. And I think the answer is both. So when you look at a fighter, you have to look at the hunger level. So when I was 38, I remember it just wasn't in my heart anymore. I just didn't want to compete. I didn't have that fire. I didn't want to go into the gym and just look at sparring and look at the rankings, see who I was fighting next. That part of me left. Badu still has that flame. But it's just as important. The responsibility lies on the team to make sure that the fighter's flame doesn't supersede his physical ability to go in there and be able to not get himself hurt. So Badu, if you look at his fights, one, he never took any real punishment in a fight. Even the headbutt fight where he was headbutting the fight with Marcus Brown, that didn't really affect him. He didn't get beat up in the fight. He got cut. He doesn't get beat up. Now, on the contrary, if you look at the guys that Badu does fight, they are never the same fighter after that. James DeGale was never the same after that. Adonis Stevenson was never the same after that. Jean Pascal will not be the same after that. Badu just breaks these guys down, and they're just not the same afterwards. So he has a lot of longevity in his career because he's never taken punishment. He takes phenomenal care. He doesn't drink, he doesn't smoke, he doesn't do any drugs. He lives a very clean lifestyle. So I think that he's got a lot more. And whether you want to look at it as fights or years, I mean, I would like to see, personally, I would like to see 3, 4 more fights, and then he walks away. But he's still got that hunger and drive as a 20-year-old.
Someone like Vidal Riley, normally when you're British, you kind of make your debuts in the UK. You kind of follow the traditional route, which is the British, Commonwealth, European title before he got to World Honours. He's jumped straight into a different country, and his kind of mentality is completely different. Is that something that you and the team looked at and said, let's build him in the States, or was that his decision to start off in the States?
Well, I think it's collective. And like I tell all the fighters, Raza, that I work with is, I'm simply going to advise you. At the end of the day, you're the president of this organization. You surround yourself with a cabinet, just like a president or a leader of any country, and you take advice from everybody. But at the end of the day, I want you to make the decision. We'll empower you with as much clean, unfiltered, just raw information, and you make the decision. I'll give you the advice that I think, but I think we go that way. So we looked at moving him in the UK, Raza. We actually looked at, and we talked to several promoters there locally. And then when the opportunity came about with Leonard, Floyd, and Mayweather Promotions, the offer they made, the marketability that they got behind, and just how fast things moved was really unprecedented. And it was an offer that you really couldn't say no to. So Vidal's first fight, look, I didn't know what Vidal really had, right? We trained with him for a while. He came to the States. We worked with him. I wanted to see what it would be like just to get him under the light. So I didn't want to really take any chances. We took him to Mexico. A friend of mine had a promotion there through Dewey Cooper, and they put him in with an opponent, and he got him out of there. I mean, just devastating. Performed like a champion. I wanted to see his mannerisms moving up to that. He performed as we expected him to. So we talked to Leonard, and he said, all right, next fight, you're going to be on the Broner-Pacquiao undercard. And that's a big stage for a guy making his debut. I mean, at least his U.S. debut. So by the way, he scored the only knockout on the whole card. 32 seconds of the first round. He got the guy out of there. And it's been no looking back ever since. He's fought on, Badu's undercards, and he rises to the occasion. We brought him to Dubai. He was the main event of our pay-per-view card out there, the Badu Jack Promotions card. It was the first ever pro kickboxing and boxing card in Dubai. He put main event, and he handled himself like a professional. So my job is to try to make him as uncomfortable as possible, and while still building him and moving him. And Raza, you've been in boxing a long time. Usually guys have padded records for the first 10, 12 fights. We're putting Vidal through a little bit more challenging of fights. The guy he fought in Dubai, his unofficial record was 10-1. A lot of, professional fights that just weren't documented, but they were professional fights. So, and the guy that we had lined up was a killer out there. He was the guy. And then the fight ended up, he had to cancel. He had an injury 2 or 3 days before the fight. So, Vidal's got a tremendous career. I foresee him being a world champion in the next 18 to 24 months.
Amer, you touched on KSI a few moments ago about his following and his relationship with Vidal Riley. A lot of eyebrows were raised by professional athletes and professional boxers when KSI got into the boxing ring and it was made into this big event. YouTube celebrities, YouTube/influencers coming into boxing, is that good for boxing?
What a question. And look at I see and I agree with both sides of the sword. But let's simplify this, and this can be a very easy answer, and just individualize it yourself. Don't look at it as boxing as a whole and what's good for boxing and what's good for that, because boxing as a whole wasn't very good to guys like Meldrick Taylor and Riddick Bowe and those guys that fought at the absolute pinnacle of the fights, and at the end of their careers, financially wasn't great for them. Let's look at it where you individualize it. So individualized for KSI. Does it make sense for him to go into a sport that, rightfully so, that he doesn't deserve to be in at that caliber? He does not deserve to be the main event of a professional boxing card with Devin Haney and Billy Joe Saunders on the undercard. What he does deserve, though, is the financial compensation and the monetization of his hard work in other platforms to be able to capitalize on that from a financial aspect. So he gets paid millions to fight another guy at an equal level that let me be honest with you. When Jake Paul and Logan Paul and KSI first fought, I told them, and I talked to Liam, who does a phenomenal job over at OP Talent, KSI's manager. And I said, let me promote the fight. I want it. I want to promote the fight. Because I saw how big and how much of demand. And he realized, he just said to me, he was like, Amer, we don't need you. We've got, between the two guys, 40 million people that are going to watch him. We don't need a promoter. And he's right. He's absolutely right. But what it did do is it brought a lot of eyeballs. Raza, you were there, Manchester Stadium, and you looked up. It was nuts. It was nuts. It was crazy. We had Prince Nassim Hamed came with us to the fight, and a couple of days before the fight, Badu had invited Nassim, and Nassim goes, "There's no fight here." I go, "Yeah, no, in Manchester there is." He's like, "Bro, I'm here. There's no fight here." We're like, "I'm telling you, there's a fight." He's like, "Okay." And then a day or two before, he goes, "Wait a second, you talking about that YouTube fight? Oh man, my son wants to see it so bad. Let's go to the fight." So even the mainstream boxing guys really didn't know what was happening. But having said all of that, millions of eyeballs on TV, millions of eyeballs on boxing. Yes, it put them in front of legitimate fighters. But at the end of the day, I'm going back to the individualization of this. Does it not benefit the guy and his family down the road? And if it does, what else matters? If you can provide for your family in an abundant way, in abundance, why wouldn't you? You're going to worry about what the stereotype of what a professional main event fight should be? No, reinvent the wheel. Now, on a boxing side of it, I get pissed when I see Boxing News report a story about, Boxing Scene report a story about one of these YouTubers. Like, that's not boxing news. I want real boxing. So I look at it from both sides of it. Is it good for boxing? I think it is.
Should we see more?
Oh, man, why'd you ask that question? From
rumors, it looks like KSI and Jake Paul probably is next.
Right. Okay, so listen to this. Floyd Mayweather 24/7s, all accesses. Without Floyd Mayweather, what was it? It was kind of like nobody wants to see Canelo training. Like, mind you, he's the next cash cow, but nobody wants to see that. Everybody wants to see Floyd Mayweather fight. YouTube boxing is revolved around the guy who pioneered it, KSI. Without KSI fighting in there, it doesn't work. So Gib fought Jake Paul, and Gib reached out to us, and we helped with because of the Vidal connection, we helped with his training camp, and we were a part of that. The fight really didn't attract. It wasn't that big of a fight. Jake Paul, of course, was the A side because his name was much bigger, affiliated with Logan, all of that. But without KSI involved, it doesn't work. Now, I'll say that, and I'll say this: is there demand for a KSI versus Jake Paul? As crazy as this sounds, the demand of KSI versus Jake Paul is going to be, if you can relate it, and I feel embarrassed to even say it, if you can relate it over to boxing, it's the same demand as Floyd and Manny Pacquiao. It's the Floyd and Manny Pacquiao of YouTube boxing. That's what it is. I told KSI at the last fight, I go, brother, you don't need to fight. You're on top of the world. Walk away. You're a king. You did what you did. Now go back to music. Go back to YouTube. Go make your millions. Let's leave this alone. But the kind of guy that he is, he wants to fight Jake Paul, and we'll see what happens.
So you can confirm that KSI does want to fight Jake Paul?
KSI, let me tell you something. He's a dog. He's an absolute dog. In the gym, I thought we were going to see this YouTube guy trying to box. The kid trained harder or just as hard as any legitimate professional fighter. And I will attest to that because I saw it with my own two eyes, and I refuse to allow anybody to take that away from this kid. He trained his ass off. Raza, he got his ass whooped in sparring. We brought real sparring partners in. We brought guys at his level in, and he rose to the occasion every single time. I got Larry Wade to be his strength and conditioning coach, and Larry looked at me and he's like, bro, what are you bringing me? I said, Larry, can you get the job done? He's like, Amer, what the F are you doing? The kid has, I don't want to say too many things, but some of the deficiencies that he has, that Larry's not used to working with guys like that. I go, can you do the job? And he's like, do I have to do it? I go, F yes, you got to do it. And he goes, fine, I'll do it. I go, then do it. And we kind of got into a screaming match about it. He's not used to that, but but when he performed, Larry said to me afterwards, he goes, man, this kid is an absolute dog. Stitch Duran. We got him working with him. When Stitch was in camp, he goes, I can't believe the transformation this kid's made. He's got real boxing people around him. He's got real boxing. No, his level isn't there. but the kid's an absolute dog. So the answer is, yeah, of course he wants it. He wants any challenge. And the team's job to make sure that he makes the right decisions. But listen, he is the A side, regardless of what it is. He started this whole thing.
I mean, just moving away from YouTube celebrities and influencers, you touched upon there Floyd Mayweather, about when it came to 24/7, it was all about Floyd Mayweather. Just want to get your thoughts on recently, Floyd's been in the gym training Devin Haney. Devin Haney is obviously a 135 fighter. But Floyd manages and promotes, well, not manages, promotes Gervonta Davis, potentially rivals. And there was a lot of back and forth on Twitter between many people about Floyd shouldn't really be training Devin. Floyd did come out and say why he did what he said, but what were your thoughts when you saw all of that happening?
You know, I didn't really see what Floyd had said about it. There's, again, double-sided sword. One is Floyd's known Devin before he's known anybody else. Devin's been in the gym since he was, 7, 8 years old. His father had his own gym for him over at the Hit Factory, and they had a great thing going. He's stayed in contact with Floyd. So Devin grew up not watching Floyd, being side by side with Floyd. So for Floyd to now pass the reins over to Devin Haney, which, by the way, I was really hoping that Devin would sign with Mayweather Promotions because it would have been perfect synergy between the two. But for whatever business reasons, they didn't do it. So Devin is training with Floyd, who's really mentoring Devin as he has from the beginning. It's unfortunate that Floyd has a conflict of interest and that his promotion company, which he's president of, is also promoting the superstar of the 135-pound division, which is Gervonta Davis. So I can see how Gervonta could be like, man, what are you doing? You're my promoter doing that. The other side of it is this Floyd's a genius without us even knowing. He could be adding the marketability of this fight behind the scenes. And now there's so much more involved in us wanting to see this 135-pound clash between the promoter who's training one guy and promoting another guy against each other. I mean, at the end of the day, it just makes business sense and it builds up the fight. Whether or not that's his intentions or not, I don't know. I can't imagine there's any real malice of him training Devin Haney to beat his fighter. It doesn't make any sense. He doesn't have any financial interests in Devin. So I guess you could look at it both ways, but the one thing that I will say is nobody ever knows what Floyd's going to do, and I think that's part of his genius and his marketability.
Amir is somebody you know very well. I know you have affiliation with him, and he also lives in Las Vegas, has come out and said he's coming back to the boxing ring or coming out of retirement and got himself into unbelievable shape from where he was. The legend, one of the greatest heavyweights of all time, Iron Mike Tyson. Anything you can tell us about this? And I know Evander Holyfield's been training with Vladimir Klitschko as well. Lights Out James Toney said, I'm willing to come back. Shannon Briggs said, I'll come back. Lennox Lewis just put an emoji up of his hand saying, which meant I'll be back. What do you make of all of this? And is it good for these ex-legends at their age to come back into boxing?
Loaded question. Okay. Is it good for them? I think if they're fighting each other, probably it's safe. If it's an exhibition, it's probably safe. But these guys, every one of them in their own, rightfully so, have taken punishment in their careers. At 50, 53, 55, you really don't want to see these guys getting hit flush because you don't know physically what that does to them, especially like Mike. He's been off now for 15 years. So it's difficult for him to come back after all of that. Having said that, do I think it's good for them mentally, emotionally? Yeah, sure. I know Mike financially is doing well, and he's already openly said that he's donating it. So I don't think it's a financial reason for them coming back. But imagine this, Raza. What happened if today's social media actually was around during Mike Tyson's heyday? Could you imagine what kind of monster, what kind of memes would have been made, what kind of excitement? Look, right now, the internet broke. I mean, the president of the United States retweeted Mike Tyson with a 9-second clip hitting pads. The world went crazy. And I think that feeds into Mike. Remember, what you see Mike Tyson now is not the Mike Tyson, and I saw it firsthand, is not the Mike Tyson who he really is. This is a domesticated Mike Tyson. The real Mike Tyson is an absolute savage. The real Mike Tyson is an absolute beast. He's the guy that reigned dominant on the heavyweight division for 15, 20 years. He was the guy that everybody, from a glancing blow would go down because they don't want the real shot. He is that guy. He's an absolute savage of a person. And if you're ever around him, you see glimpses of that guy coming out. And I had the opportunity to see something that was just terrifying. And he acted towards a manager that crossed him. And it was just me, him, and the other guy in the room. And it was the real Mike Tyson that came out. So is it good for boxing?
I mean, just on that, just want to share with you as well. I was once in Las Vegas, and Mayweather Promotions had, I believe it's McGregor Floyd fight week, and they had a small show at one of the hotels, and Sam's Town. And Mike Tyson was sitting there. So I thought, you know what? He was sitting alone. There's about 15 spaces next to him. No one was sitting next to him. I said, I'm going to go and put my bum next to him. I didn't sit right next to him, but like left one seat, and Mike was there. And I'm not lying. I sat there. I gave him eye to eye as I sat down. I was so scared of just taking my phone out of my pocket, not just in case he thought I may be trying to take a picture, when reality was it was ringing and I need to answer it. I was so scared without saying anything. And I was thinking to myself, imagine what he was like in his prime, face to face with someone he was in a fight. I did eventually break the ice with him and had a really good conversation with him. However, I 100% agree with when you say that intimidation, fear factor is still in him now.
Yeah, I know. And mashallah, like his presence in itself, his neck is like this, his head is like this. The guy is an absolute, he's a brutal looking guy. He's just got such a presence about him. And when you look at, the youngest heavyweight champion in the world, there's a reason for that. He was ferocious. And he is. His innate nature is just that of an absolute gladiator. He was born for this. If you saw the interview on his Hot Boxing podcast with Sugar Ray Leonard, when he said, I'm just afraid of that guy to come back, because if he comes back, hell's coming with him. And that's true, because he's just, the way that he lived, Mike Tyson's marketability back then, imagine if there was so much social media that there was back then. He's an animal. He's just, a beast of a man. And I think it's great for boxing. Like, the whole world's like, I can't wait to see a 55-year-old Mike Tyson come back. Man, you don't want to see a 55-year-old Mike Tyson come back. You want to see the savagery of Mike Tyson. That's what you want. You want to see somebody just getting hurt. But that's what society is fixated on, So, Mike's going to do what Mike's going to do. I do know that he's taken this very seriously, and you can see physically how he's made the transformation. So, my question is, I wonder, what it is that clicked in his head that said, I'm in.
Amer, we're running out of time on Zoom. We're not far off from, obviously, have a time limit, but I just want to finish off and obviously get your thoughts. Obviously, in America at the moment, there's a lot going on with riots, with protesting at the moment. George Floyd, who was, I would say, murdered in front of the whole world. Just wonder your kind of reaction. Obviously, you're in America, on what is going through people now. We know we've got people who are protesting peacefully, but then we know we've got others that are going in the shops and moving shops, etc. What's your thoughts on everything that's going on at the moment?
Raz, that answer in itself could probably take 10 minutes, but let me try to make it very concise. You don't have to say it looked like. He was murdered. And the fact that there was a fictitious or an altered or however you want to say it, medical report saying that there's underlying conditions further adds to the problem of why there's protests, further adds to how frustrated and furious these people are. So you're telling me a licensed medical examiner who works for the state, who the state takes their professional opinion, is telling us there is no asphyxiation involved. He was not choked to death. He died because of an underlying heart condition or a medical condition. It's absurd. That in itself should incite a riot. And I'm not inciting riots by any means. Alhamdulillah, I'm a happy, content, proud Muslim. But that in itself is what oppression is built off of. How do you not look at it that way? And then they bring in probably the number one medical examiner in the world, Dr. Bodden, who, if you remember back in the days, of course, you're too young for that, Raza, but he had his own HBO special. And this guy is the leading medical expert in the world for postmortem and autopsies. He says, man, it's absolutely, there's no other condition that he could have died of. It was an obvious trauma. It was, asphyxiation. He died because of a lack of oxygen. And when you have ignorant governors that go on and say, well, if he could ask for help, that means he could breathe. What are you now, aside from being an obese, ignorant governor, you're now a medical expert also? That in itself, and I already feel the blood boiling. I have to turn the TV off because of how infuriating it is. Racism didn't start with the Trump administration. And I'm not blaming it on the Trump administration. I'm saying racism didn't start with him. You know what it did do? It made it okay to kind of be, hey, you're a Muslim, you're an Indian, you're white, you're brown. It made it okay to label. We're not allowing any Muslims from any Muslim countries to come into the country. You're now promoting this. So this racism, and when you start saying you loot, we shoot, what else do you want him to do? Kaepernick took a knee and you hated him for it. And he lost his job and you bashed the man because he refused, because he tried to protest peacefully against the very thing that happened. How ironic is it that this method of death, this execution that you executed George Floyd with, is the same move that Kaepernick kind of kneeled with? I mean, it's just, what else do you want them to do? Okay, we protested quietly. We marched quietly. We tried to do everything we tried to do without any kind of violence. What, I mean, I'm not advocating violence. What else needs to be done? I say, alhamdulillah, as a Muslim, almost 1,500 years ago, the Prophet Muhammad in his last sermon said, none of you, Arabs are greater than a non-Arab, whites are greater than blacks, blacks are superior to whites. Everybody is equal. We are one race. We are humanity. What will it take for the United States, and in particularly the officers, to understand that? Why do you need to shoot guys jogging in the road? Why, when somebody says, I can't breathe, can you just not release your knee off of his neck or your chokehold off of him? What will it take? I don't know. But as Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York State, said, and I thought that, and he shot himself in the foot politically, but he was as real as it gets. I'm with the protesters.
Can I just ask you this very quickly? How important is it for the people to continue this for months and years in terms of protesting? Because what generally happens sometimes, and I'm not referring to this particular scenario, but generally when a situation takes place, people get quite hot-headed, quite animated for that particular period, which may last a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but they go home and they forget about it and they carry on with their day-to-day life. So how do people continuously remember that this needs to change?
I think one of the biggest problems that we have is we have so many expert opinions. I'm not an expert, and I would refrain from even giving my opinion, because here's my humble, honest answer. I don't know. I don't know. Listen, I'm openly saying this. When Kaepernick took a knee, I thought, yo, man, a lot of people lost their lives for the freedom to allow you to take a knee. So why take a knee? I mean, okay, you want to stand up and turn your back. Okay, that's one thing. But don't disrespect the flag. And I say that for the flag of any country. So I wasn't totally understanding of it. And I'm saying that in absolute humbleness. I mean, I don't have to admit that, but I'm telling you, I was opposed to him taking a knee. Of course, never violently, but I was like, okay, there's other ways that you could protest it. And I would always stand for, and even though Palestinians are getting murdered and raped and pillaged by a government that the U.S. backs with billions of dollars a year, I still have loyalty to my country because it is my country. But having said that, I don't know what the answer is. I don't know, because I was wrong before. I could be wrong again. What I'm saying is, what is the solution? I mean, how do you end racism? I don't know. Personally, and not that my opinion matters, I think religion is what ties everything. I think the equality in religion and the equality in a lifestyle is how people stay, I don't want to say tame, but stay in line. There has to be accountability. Like, as Muslims, we understand at the end we are going to be held accountable, where even animals will be held accountable for if they ever did injustice to another animal. So imagine humans. Even in Islam, if I offend you, or if I do you incorrectly, Raza, God can't forgive me for asking forgiveness. You have to forgive me because I offended you or I did you wrong. So I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. So I think there's so many opinions out there, and you look at social media and all of a sudden all these expert opinions are on there. I just started logging off, man. It's infuriating to me. It's infuriating to me that an innocent man lost his life. Forget about if it was a counter $20 bill, if it was a counter $2 million bill. That's not the important part. The important part is this man did not deserve to lose his life after he pled and he begged for his life for over 8 minutes. What kind of police force allows something like that to happen? Where's the accountability? I don't know. I don't have an answer. I just pray for humanity. That's all I can do.
I just want to end with, obviously, our prayers and thoughts go out to George Floyd's family, friends, colleagues, and all his loved ones. And we just hope and pray that over a period of time, nothing will happen straight away, but over a period of time, things will change and ease, not just in the United States of America, but whatever people are suffering around the world. Amer, I appreciate you giving me close to 40 odd minutes of your time today. Way overdue. It was way overdue. I apologize for cancelling a couple of weeks ago due to personal reasons, but we got it done eventually. And I cannot wait to get back to the States and hang out a little bit with you.
Don't get carried away. I'm not sure if we're going to hang out, but I appreciate it, Raza. It's good to see you as always. I know that you go to sleep and wake up with that same haircut and that same hairstyle. So thank you for having me on. I'm a big fan of IFL. I love what you guys do, and I'm glad to see you as part of the team.
Amer Abdallah for IFL TV. Thank you very much.
Thank you, brother.